In this series, we've covered the path to Formula One and drivers building their own legends, like Bottas and George Russell. Also about drivers who have already become legends and achieved the top milestones in Formula One like Vettel, Button or Kimi Raikkonen. Now let's discuss someone who became one of the greatest legends in Formula One history. For some, the driver we're talking about today is the best in history. For others, he's one of the best, but for no one is he indifferent. Known by many as the Kaiser or Schumi, but his real name is Michael Schumacher, that man known as one of the greatest talents Formula One has ever seen in its entire history. Dear audience, is it time to recognize his motorsport journey? It's time for the Journey's special episode, honoring one of the greatest in history as we review his motorsport career, his track record and how he managed to enter that select group of world champions. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 6 of the journey of Michael Schumacher. This month of April is perfect to start organizing trips, whether it's for vacations to discover new things or trips to attend Formula One Grand Prix events around the world. Whatever your goal is, saving some money will definitely help when organizing your travel budget. And in fact, there are some ways to get certain things cheaper, like flights, which are usually the most expensive part of traveling. One way to save some money on this is by using a VPN, and in this case, we'll use the one from our friends at Subshark. You see, some airlines set higher prices for certain regions of the world for a reason, honestly unknown. If you use Subshark, you'll be able to change your IP to virtually place yourself anywhere on the globe. And with it, you can get some flights at lower prices and save a bit of money on your trip. As I mentioned, I used this on my last trips to the 24 Hours of Le Mans and the Spanish Grand Prix. In addition to this, with Subshark, during your trip in countries with certain browsing restrictions, you can bypass any kind of restriction and use your apps and systems completely normally. And as if that wasn't enough, that's a bonus. Subshark allows you to improve your cybersecurity by filtering your data and blocking potential threats that may arise in situations like when you have to connect to public Wi-Fi. It's a combo you shouldn't miss out on, and it's just a small part of what you can do with this VPN tool. And well, so you can try out the system and use it on an unlimited number of devices. I'll share my code SKYLINE, so you get 3 extra months when signing up for Subshark and enjoy these benefits. And if you don't like it or you're not convinced, you have a full money-back guarantee. So don't miss this opportunity to open many doors in your browsing with the tool from our friends at Subshark. As always, we begin by sharing some background on the pilot we'll discuss. In this case, it's Michael Schumacher, although the correct pronunciation is Michael Schumacher, a pilot born in Mannheim, Germany on January 3, 1969, and who is the son of Rolf and Elisabeth Schumacher, 2 hard-working Germans, and where his father in fact was a worker from the region and where at some point in history he built his son a go-kart with a motorcycle engine so he could learn about cars at a young age. And may it help you learn more, the driver. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new videos. May it help the driver learn more. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any videos. Money was scarce in the Schumacher family, so they didn't have the best racing equipment or even the newest. And now Schumacher dominated at the local circuit, which sooner or later ended up being managed by Rolf and Elisabeth. And that's how Schumacher's early years in karting went, showing a lot of talent and winning events that gradually started to attract people's attention. This established him as a promising motorsport driver. In karting, he began making a name for himself with his successes. In 1984, he won the German JKM Junior Championship. In 1985, he won the JKM Championship again and was runner-up in the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile World Junior Championship. In 1986, he won the DKM Championship, and in 1987, he was the winner of the European Championship in the 100 cubic centimeters category. And these were just some of the many championships won by the German during his time in karting. But despite this promising and overwhelming run in the world of karts, as I told you, money was not something that was abundant in this family. And no matter how much talent he had, without that resource, his future in motorsport was uncertain. But this is where one of the most important people in Michael Schumacher's career comes into play. His name is Willy Weber, a German talent agent who had been pleasantly surprised by the Kaiser's skills in karting. And seeing his talent and potential to belong to the elite of motorsport, he approached the Schumacher family with a deal on the table. They'd pay Michael a salary, fund his motorsport career, and secure him a race car seat if Willy managed his career. This, for obvious reasons, led Schumacher to accept the chance to fulfill his dream. And with that, in 1988, he would make the jump from karting to motorsport. In 1988, he competed in 3 championships. He was competing in Formula Konig, German Formula 1600, and European Formula 1600. In the German Championship, he placed 6th, earning 3 wins, 4 podiums, and 1 pole in 6 races. In the European Championship, he finished runner-up with 2 wins, 3 podiums in 4 races, and 1 pole position. He also raced in Formula Konig, becoming champion with 9 wins in 10 rounds. The German gave a fantastic performance in his debut with cars much faster than karts. This would allow him in 1989 to keep growing in this world. This time, he was competing full-time in the German Formula 3 series. He finished 3rd in the drivers' standings, narrowly missing the title by 1 point to Austrian Karl Wendingler and German Hans-Harald Frentzen. 1990. It would be a very good year for his development as a driver. This time, he competed again in the German Formula 3 Championship and finally won the title. But in addition, that year he would win the Macau Grand Prix edition. He also competed in the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile World Prototype Championship. He finished 5th and achieved his only victory in this category, within Mexico City's 480 kilometers. Honestly, 1990 turned out to be a great year for him. And on paper, 1991 should have been another one in the breeding grounds of Formula 1. Since no one knew that this would be the year when his big chance to belong to the top category of motorsport would finally appear. Schumacher competed in Deutsche Tourenwagen Masters and the World Sports Car Championship. But in August of that same year, the Jordan Formula 1 team found themselves in need of a driver. That year, they had the duo of Andrea de Cesaris and the Belgian Ben Tragachot. But the latter was going to miss his home Grand Prix because he was arrested in London after an altercation with a taxi driver where it seems he sprayed him with pepper spray, and that's forbidden in that country. After the arrest, Jordan replaced his driver, and this was the moment when Willy Weber pushed hard for Jordan to give Schumacher a chance in Formula 1. Despite his youth and inexperience, they gave him a test at Silverstone where he impressed Eddie Jordan with his performance. But Spa-Francorchamps, where he was set to debut, is a very challenging track. Before approving him to replace the Belgian driver, Jordan wanted to know if Schumacher had experience on this track. The Schumacher family and Willy Weber told him yes, but that was obviously a lie, since Schumacher only knew the track visually and had never driven on it. But if he had to lie to get that opportunity, that's exactly what he was going to do. And so, after those tests, Schumacher would face what would be his first weekend as a Formula 1 driver on the dangerous, fast and treacherous Spa-Francorchamps circuit, and Schumacher didn't waste the opportunity he had been given at all. He had an excellent qualifying session, finishing 7th, beating his teammate and earning his best qualifying spot of the season. Let's remember, as a rookie, he drew a lot of attention and impressed everyone with his talent in his first appearance in the category. Unfortunately, Schumacher couldn't race due to a clutch problem. Eddie Jordan was surprised by his performance, which he'd already noticed during pre-Grand Prix tests. Surprised by his talent, he offered him a 3-year pre-contract he needed to sign to get his chance at the Belgian Grand Prix. The only problem with this whole situation is that Jordan wasn't the only one surprised by Schumacher. Flavio Briatore, Benetton's team principal, was also very interested in signing the German driver. Briatore actually tricked Schumacher's manager by altering a word in the pre-contract to secure the German driver. He continued driving for Benetton for the rest of the 1991 season. They promised Schumacher that Ford would stay as Benetton's engine supplier and he wouldn't have to pay to keep his seat. And seeing that they would have the chance to have a winning car in the short and medium term and that they wouldn't have to pay anything to keep driving, they signed with Benetton, leaving Jordan behind. And where would the path begin that would forge the legend we know today? Schumacher, racing for Benetton, scored points in the next 3 Grands Prix of 1991 and placed 14th in the drivers' standings. It was a great result, given he didn't compete until the Belgian Grand Prix. 1992. For him, it would be his first full-time Formula 1 experience, and he certainly lived up to the expectations people had of him. That year, Nigel Mansell dominated with his unstoppable Williams, facing no real title challengers. His consistency was surprising, earning 7 podiums that season. He earned his first Formula 1 victory at the Belgian Grand Prix, where he had debuted just a year before, fulfilling the dream of many drivers, something that very few are able to achieve. In fact, he finished 1992 in 3rd place in the drivers' standings, being the best driver among the rest, and where he was very close to beating Williams' number 2 driver, Riccardo Patrese. Not bad for a guy in his 2nd year in Formula 1. For 1993, he would maintain his consistency, scoring 8 podiums and a victory throughout the season, but this time he dropped to 4th place in the drivers' standings. But Benetton was slowly making small steps forward, and Schumacher had little idea that in 1994 his big moment would finally arrive. That season saw several technical changes that altered the grid order, as electronic aids, popular since 1992, were banned and refueling returned. In 1994, Williams, dominant in Formula 1 since '92, was expected to maintain its strong pace advantage. And this time they would be led by Ayrton Senna, so it was expected that they would take the season without any kind of opposition. Without anyone in the world imagining that a new challenger would emerge that season. Schumacher was surprising the world, having overwhelmingly snatched the victory from the Williams team and Ayrton Senna. By winning the first 2 races of the year, he quickly became a top contender for the 1994 title. That season was filled with controversies and dark moments. The Senna-Schumacher rivalry was just beginning, but Senna's death at Imola on May 1, 1994 abruptly ended what could have been a legendary rivalry. Additionally, Benetton and Schumacher became involved in numerous scandals. It was initially suspected that his car had electronic aids like launch and traction control, which was confirmed months later. But he wasn't punished because the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile couldn't prove they were being used during the race. And their regulations prohibited the use of electronic aids, but they didn't prohibit having them installed in the car. A small legal loophole. They were disqualified in Great Britain for ignoring a penalty, resulting in exclusion from 2 races and the British disqualification. It was also revealed that this team's refueling system was tampered with to speed up refueling. A series of events led to many accusations that Benetton and Schumacher were dirty and cheated. This team dominated and won more games than anyone else that season. However, those disqualifications allowed Damon Hill, who became team leader after Senna's death, to catch up to him in the points standings late in the season. With just 1 point between them, they would battle for the 1994 crown in the year's final race. In that showdown, both pushed themselves to the limit. The Briton and the German were having a memorable battle at the Adelaide circuit in Australia. But unfortunately, this controversial World Championship had to end the same way.
That's it! Schumacher is out and losing time as Hill moves ahead.
Oh, here goes Schumacher. Germany is out.
With a questionable move, Schumacher took Damon Hill out of the race, giving him a 1-point lead over the Englishman. He became the world champion of the 1994 season, thus controversially achieving his first World Drivers' title and the first for Benetton. And in 1995 he would do it again, becoming a 2-time world champion, having achieved 9 victories and 2 more podiums, completely dominating the rest of the competitors that year. Despite 2 years of success and 2 world championships with Benetton, Schumacher felt it was time for a new challenge and dream in Formula 1. Look, one of the Germans' dreams was to become world champion with Scuderia Ferrari, the most legendary and glorious team on the grid, which had gone several years without being able to win the world championships, since Jody Scheckter did it in 1979. After several failed attempts, Ferrari was restructuring to potentially return to Gran Circus leadership in the medium to long term. They hired Jan Toth as team principal and Ross Brown as technical director for the Red Squad, and they sought out Schumacher to lead this project, offering him a stratospheric salary and the chance to become a legend with the legendary Red Team. Schumacher had 1 year left on his Benetton contract, so he'd be free in 1997. He chose to join the Red Team, breaking his contract by using the 1994 scandals. To use them to break the contract, claiming the accusations harmed his image. With this and a possible clause in that contract, he was able to sign with the Red Team and thus, in 1996, begin the journey that would take him from Formula One champion to the status of absolute legend. 1996 marked the start of the search for success during the restructuring. On that occasion, he couldn't fight Diamond Hill for the title since Ferrari wasn't ready to compete, but he still showed flashes of talent, like the beautiful performance at the Spanish Grand Prix. In the rain, and with the 3 victories achieved throughout the season, he secured 3rd place in the Drivers' Championship. And after this transitional season in 1997, it was time to fight. His rival was once again a Williams driver, this time Canadian Jacques Villeneuve. The two became involved in a historic season, battling for the world title until the very end. Will the 1994 scenario repeat at the European Grand Prix at Jerez de la Frontera? Michael entered the final race with a 1-point lead over his rival to decide the World Championship. And just like in 1994, this world title would also be decided in a very controversial way.
Michael! Mikhail.
Schumacher deliberately tried to collide with Jacques Villeneuve to secure the 1997 championship title, but this time the move went terribly wrong for him. Because in the move the German tried to make, only Soto was left unable to continue with the Grand Prix. And in the end, Jacques Villeneuve finished 3rd in that Grand Prix, and with that he won the World Drivers' Championship, taking it away from the Ferrari team. But this action had exhausted the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile patience, who, seeking to teach a lesson and prevent title contenders from crashing into each other in the last race of the year. As with Senna and Prost in 89 or 90 or Schumacher and Hill in 1994, Schumacher was disqualified from the 1997 season. His victories and achievements that year were respected, but all his points were removed and he was excluded from the World Drivers' Championship. Therefore, the German finished last in this World Championship as punishment for the accident with Jacques Villeneuve. That season ended in disappointment and many Ferrari fans began to doubt if Schumacher was truly the team's savior. But the foundation was already strong. 1998 was meant to mark the Italian team's return to success. They never expected that a new rival would appear. McLaren, long in the shadows, chose to step into the spotlight that year, to play at taking the title away from the Ferrari people, Williams, who would turn the 1998 season into one where a legendary rivalry in the category's history was born, between Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen. Where both of them shared most of the victories that season, in the end, it was Häkkinen who took the crown at the Japanese Grand Prix, after taking advantage of a starting mistake by Schumi and also a puncture during the race that killed any chance he had of winning the title. In 1998, they lost to a team and driver who were outstanding. Schumi's coronation would have to be postponed until 1999, a new attempt for Schumacher to win that crown with the Ferrari team, but unfortunately, at the British Grand Prix, he suffered an accident that caused him a leg fracture. And because of that, he had to miss almost the entire remaining season, killing any of his chances for the title in one blow. He came back from injury at the Malaysian Grand Prix to help his teammate Eddie Irvine try to beat Mika Häkkinen for the title. Even though they won that Grand Prix, he couldn't stop Häkkinen from taking the crown at the next Grand Prix in Japan. However, they did manage to win the Constructors' Championship, which was technically the first title Schumacher achieved with the Ferrari team. By now, Schumacher had missed the driver's crown for 4 seasons in a row. In 2000, the German finally had his year, facing Mika Hakkinen again in a fierce title battle, in what would be the highest point of one of the greatest battles in the history of Formula One. But it was at the Japanese Grand Prix where Schumacher finally won his first Ferrari title and became a 3-time Formula One world champion. This not only made Schumacher finally achieve the dream of becoming champion with the legendary Red Team, but it also marked the beginning of the era of brutal and uncontested dominance by Ferrari and Schumacher for several years. In 2001 and 2002, he dominated the competition with total authority. In fact, in 2002, he set the record for getting on the podium in every race of the year. In just 2 seasons, he earned 20 victories and became a 5-time Formula One world champion, achieving a status of being, statistically speaking, the best in history up to that point. And he only needed to win 1 more title to surpass Fangio in that regard and become the most successful and the driver with the most titles on his own in Formula One. However, 2003 was one of the most difficult seasons that the German had to face. That year, he faced Kimi Raikkonen from McLaren and Juan Pablo Montoya from Williams, in an epic season where the 3 of them engaged in an exciting battle. Raikkonen and Schumacher both entered the final race with a shot at the World Championship. In that last showdown, Schumacher, despite a complicated race, managed to hold on to become the champion and claim his 6th driver's title in his racing career. In 2004, Ferrari returned to form. Schumacher crushed the competition once again, taking 13 victories in the season and beating his rivals. With no opposition, the German set a record and reached an incredible milestone that season, becoming a 7-time Formula One world champion and placing himself at the highest historical level ever seen in the history of this sport. Schumacher was already a legend, and he and Ferrari were in a golden era, dominating since 2000. But in life, everything ends, and this golden era ended in 2005. In that season, it was determined by regulation that the tires had to last the entire Grand Prix, with no possibility of changing tires unless it was strictly necessary. And this benefited the cars that were using Michelin compounds and greatly harmed those that were using Bridgestone tires. Ferrari used Japanese-made tires that season, leading to their biggest drop in competitiveness in years. Schumacher could barely win at the United States Grand Prix, and that was basically because those cars using Michelin tires couldn't compete in that Grand Prix, leaving the grid with only 6 cars. In that race, Ferrari claimed their sole victory of the season. Disastrous. Despite that, he managed to get 4 podiums and the victory in the United States. He scored 63 points, finishing 3rd in the Grand Circus Drivers' Championship. The rule banning tire changes was dropped from Formula One only in 2006. Ferrari had once again created their weapon to challenge the competition. This time, he would have to face Fernando Alonso in a fierce and exciting battle for the title. The Spaniard was a relentless rival who never let up against the German in his pursuit of a 2nd championship, and both delivered memorable battles all season. Other controversies include Schumacher's disqualification from the Monaco Grand Prix for parking on a corner to block others from improving their pole position time. But when the 2 of them battled wheel to wheel, it was a true spectacle. Despite the thrilling battle at the Italian Grand Prix, the world of Formula One and Ferrari would receive news that most likely very few wanted to hear. After winning the Italian Grand Prix, Schumacher announced his retirement from Formula One at the end of the 2006 season during the post-race press conference. Feeling that his time in motorsport had come to an end and trusting that Ferrari would know how to keep growing without the leader who had joined the team 10 years earlier. So, in theory, 2006 was his last chance to become world champion. But he'd have to win that title against Fernando Alonso, who wouldn't give it up easily. With 2 races left in that fierce world championship, They were tied in the fight for the driver's title and in the Japanese Grand Prix. Their battle intensified until, unfortunately for him, an engine failure out of nowhere made his fight an uphill battle. The 2006 World Championship's final round was at Brazil's famous Interlagos circuit, where the Kaiser still had a shot at the title. But only a miracle could take the title from Fernando Alonso. He had to win, and for Fernando Alonso to earn no points to claim the title, thanks to the tiebreaker rule for the highest number of victories. The Grand Prix started poorly for the German here. Schumacher couldn't set a time in Q3 because of a fuel pressure failure, so he started 10th while Fernando started 4th. That race was a nightmare for the German. He attempted a comeback but got a left rear tire puncture while passing Giancarlo Fisichella. Therefore, he had to go into the pits, but when he came out, he gave the world a driving exhibition. One last touch before retirement, which unfortunately couldn't have a happy ending. That epic feat only got him 4th place at the Brazilian Grand Prix, while Alonso finished 2nd, stopping him from winning his 8th world title. He still left with his head high, making everyone proud as always. A fanbase that always welcomed him with open arms, proud of the driver who had given them so much success in the past. And so, having given it his all and falling in the last race, that's how Schumacher's adventure in Formula 1 came to an end. Or at least, that's what we all thought at that moment. After retiring, he became a Ferrari consultant and participated in motorcycle events where he had a serious accident. Anyway, he was doing different things. But what few people expected was that in 2010, Mercedes would return to Formula 1 after many years away. Since the 1955 Le Mans incident. For that return of the German brand. The seats of that team were given to Nico Rosberg, who came from Williams, and the other, none other than Michael Schumacher, when the Silver Arrows convinced him to come out of retirement for one final race, but now competing with his home country's team. Nico Rosberg and he would be teammates for 3 years, 2010-2012. However, those seasons were terrible for the Kaiser. He didn't achieve his goal of becoming a world champion again. In fact, he wasn't even a threat for that world title and was beaten by his teammate in those 3 seasons. His top silver highlighted moment was taking pole position at the 2012 Monaco Grand Prix. And what about his podium at the European Grand Prix that same season? At the end of 2012, Schumacher announced his retirement from Formula 1 again, this time making it final. Since Mercedes selected Lewis Hamilton to stay with their project, and this time Schumacher decided to step aside and not continue in Formula 1. His final race that year was the Brazilian Grand Prix, a chaotic race in the rain, where he finished in 7th position in the driver's standings, in a final display where he said goodbye at the end. With all the honors and with everyone paying tribute to a legend who had decided to hang up his gloves for good. By then, Schumacher's life shifted from racing the fastest cars to focusing on his family. In noble faith, without anyone knowing that soon his destiny would change forever, and for the worse. On December 28, 2013, Schumacher and his family chose to vacation skiing in the French Alps. That day, without knowing it, the Schumacher family would never be the same again, since the Kaiser had an accident while skiing, falling and hitting his head on a rock. An accident that left him with a traumatic brain injury, which kept him in a coma for several months. Unfortunately, to this day, the Kaiser's health status and condition are completely unknown. There are only scattered statements. Some say his condition is improving and a struggle, others call it a lost cause. With so little information, all we can do is speculate about his health. Speculate about things mentioned by people like his friend Jan Todd, doctors who treated him, and comments made by his family. And the only thing we can be sure of is that the Kaiser has always been a fighter. And even now, 10 years after that incident, he is still fighting the biggest battle of his entire life. In conclusion, today it's impossible to think of the team, Ferrari, or Formula 1 without thinking at least once about the man considered by many as the greatest driver ever. Schumacher was always the embodiment of what discipline, hard work, and the hunger to win meant. Sometimes his drive to win and obsession with victory pushed him to controversial extremes. But without a doubt, regardless of this, talking about Schumacher is talking about one of the most naturally talented drivers this planet has ever seen. A man who, despite financial difficulties, opened doors for himself through talent and effort. His talent made him one of the most statistically successful in history and the current holder of the most world titles. In the company of Lewis Hamilton, that artist of the track went on to break records one after another, collecting 91 victories, a bunch of pole positions, adding quite a few podiums, and above all, helping to bring the legendary Italian team back to the top and winning over the tough Tifosi fans. Doing feats that before meeting him, very few had ever seen. Honestly, I prefer to remember him for that. Thinking that after so many years he's still fighting a battle that I trust he'll be able to win at some point in his life. And the only thing I can say and want to say is that I hope the German never stops fighting. Ensure his legacy and achievements are remembered. They may be surpassed, but are unlikely to be forgotten. And where he will always be remembered as one of the best drivers ever seen in the history of this fast car sport. Ladies and gentlemen, another chapter of the journey is complete. But this is where I ask, what did you think of the German driver's path to Formula 1 and in Formula 1? Did you know about his achievements and journey? Is Schumacher one of the best in history for you, or is he the best? Let me know all your opinions in the comments section. I'm wrapping up this episode of this mini-series, but before I go, if you like this video, give us a like. A small thumbs up may not mean much to you, but it means a lot to us. It's an invaluable help for us to keep growing on this platform, so smash that thumbs up, help us keep growing, and we'll know how to thank you with more Formula 1 and motorsports content. Likewise, if you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends, and I invite you to follow us on our Instagram and Twitter accounts, the links to which will be in the description of this video. Goodbye for now, I'm Skyline Racing, see you later. For more content on your Skyline Racing channel, thank you for tuning in. And see you later.